Annyeong, it's Mikey here, and today we're going to be doing another Hall Effect keyboard, and this time it's from Luminkey. It's going to be the Magger60 HE. I'm quite surprised that this one came actually in a carrying case. Now normally the Luminkeys are usually coming in like a nice box, but this time around they provided you a carrying case, especially if you are a gamer who wants to take your board. So please make sure to like and subscribe, and let's get straight into the unboxing. Now starting off with the unboxing of the Luminkey Magger60 HE. Now, this comes in a really nice carrying case. Gotta admit, it's more of a hard shelled case and it feels quite decent. It's very, very thick though, so you are gonna have some issues in terms of fitting in a backpack because of how thick it is, but it's quite nice. They only provide you one extra switch, which I'm kind of confused about. I would hope that they would provide like 3, but you only get one switch puller, keycap puller, and a cable that's supposed to do 8K. Now, of course, this is how Magger always is wrapped up. It's like in a plastic, same thing was for the Magger68, and overall, it is in a nice aluminum case. This is going to be like a different type of coating, which was kind of interesting to feel as well. I was quite surprised with it with the first impressions. It does feel super light though, so weighing it before we go into a sound test, it weighs a total of 980 grams. So I'm going to be shortening a lot of this portions and just giving you guys explanations of what to do. So there's a total of 8 screws that you have to remove, and it's very easy to open up this case. All you have to do, remove them screws, and then boom, you can actually get it open. One thing I noticed already with this board is that the flex cuts are not there. So you're looking at an FR4 plate with no flex cuts. And one thing cool is that they're plate mounted stabilizers with decent looping. So you don't actually have to add extra loops to them. I didn't have any issues with tinging sounds, and in general the inside where the wires go in with the housing, you are getting a decent amount of lube inside as well. So overall, not too bad from Luminkey. Now, one thing I noticed with this is it is gasket mounted. It has a very interesting gasket mount, kind of like the PCB snaps from Geon and Nuxrox, and they're done pretty decently. It does fall off really easily though. One thing you'll notice here with the PCB that's really cool is that the back is non-flex cut, and it also has a lot of different ribbon cable connection points, and the daughter board is also able to be removed. So this means that you can actually put this in many different cases, and this thing is going to be 1.2 millimeters for both the PCB and the plate, which is kind of unfortunate. I thought it'd be 1.6, but we're going to do a 2-layer tape mod just to see how this is going to sound with the modding, and of course put it back together. Keep in mind the long screws go in the back top of the board and the small screws on the bottom. But let's hear a sound test. So the first thing that I noticed that is a big pro of this board is the fact that it already lines up with a lot of the Wooting things. So that means you can already use third-party Wooting cases for this board. Now the back of the coating for this one, it's not the anodized version, and it was decent. It actually was kind of smooth, and you don't have any worries of chipping. And as I mentioned with the PCB, this is a big pro. It has many different connection points, which allows you to really customize this with many different cases out there. Even for example, like the Tofu 60 3.0. Now this is gasket mounted. It has a very interesting thing, but the only issue with it is a little bit too thin, so it does fall off really easily when you take it out of the case. Another issue is that the PCBs are a little bit too thin, and the plate, I would have hoped that they would have made a 1.6 millimeter, but it measured at 1.2. Now the backlighting is decently bright, but the only issue is that this is the white light version and it's coming off a little bit green. So the housing does affect the backlighting. Now going into the website, looking at the pricing, we're looking at $169 normally, right now on sale for $149. Not a bad price at the moment, especially when you consider it's 8K, has 3 different colors available. You have 2 different anodized version, and this is the E-coating, which the E-coating was actually pretty decent. The thing with this board though is that you're not going to get a ton with it, not a lot of information, and it's very, very simple. You can see here, you have a cable, you get the switch, an extra switch, only one, and then you have 8K with this thing. You also have a lot of different customizations with it. They say it's 1.6 millimeter PCB, but I don't know. I didn't get that with the measurements. It still came up at 1.2. Now let's go into the software. So all you have to do, go to the WebDriver and boom, you have it open. Just connect the board and easily it pops up. Now this is the web app, and the web app is, as you can see here, very, very simple. It has all the basic things that you need for an HE board. You have remapping, which makes it very simple to change things. You have the function layers, which is really cool. You can even change like the bottom right to be function. So that way you can have the arrow keys with the function and the control and the alt, all those things to be the arrow keys. Now, one of the things that it's missing though is that it's missing the profile change button. So that's a really key thing that it's missing, which is not great. Now, the advanced settings, you do have SOCD and all those things available, but we will test to make sure those things are working a little bit later with the gaming. Now, with the demo version here, so like where you can see the Switch demo, unfortunately it's not working. I'm not sure why it wasn't showing like the movement of the Switch, but that's also kind of a con here that the software doesn't have that working properly. Now you do have dead zone choosing, so that's a good thing. You can actually set up your dead zones that you need. You also can do rapid trigger and set up those rapid trigger settings that you need it to be, and you can also do the continuous trigger if you need it as well. So there are very good settings that you can use with this, and the software in general has the bare minimum what you need for a Hall of a keyboard. You also have the different lighting here so that you can go and change it, and here you can actually do macros as well, which is very nice. You can also change the tick rate as you need it, or even the anti-shake, which is quite interesting because these aren't things that you normally see on other boards, which is very nice. Now you can also change the polling rate, but we're gonna have to test that with the keyboard inspector. Make sure it's getting 8K, because depending on the scan rate, and of course if you change it to 1K, will it actually do 1K? So those are things we want to test here. Now with the 8K testing here, we're going to get the high numbers here because of the scan rate. So you're looking at, of course, getting 8K with this board, which is a good thing. And your latency should be good. Honestly, at 8K, the latency wise, you aren't really going to have to worry too much about it because it's going to be very, very hard to tell at that point. Now, when we change it to 1K though, I'm not getting 1K with this, which is really weird. So that means the scan rate is overloading it. And that's not always going to be a good thing because I can't personally test it. But what I'm thinking is that if it's not hitting exact 1K, if you have a computer that can't handle it or in a game, it might bug out, which is not good. Now, of course, Apex is the best game that I test rapid trigger because I like to set up the actuation so that super gliding is super easy. Super gliding in Apex Legends is supposed to be frame perfect, and rapid trigger boards, Hall of Fame boards really make it easier to set it up. So this is how I like to test it. Now the earlier jumps were not super gliding, but the last one was. And as you can see here, when I use a shotgun with a gold bolt and I do pull off a super glide, it does an auto reload. So that way I actually know it is working. Now when I change and pick up items, this is also another benefit of Hall of Fame boards, is that you can pick up items a little bit quicker because of the actuation points and of course with the latency. Now, one thing that you can do with Hall of Fame boards that works really well is, as you can see here, that's normal recoil. When you do movements in Apex, it actually does reduce recoil, but also if you spam AD, you can also kind of reduce that recoil as well. So it has some recoil smoothing effects, and only Hall of Fame boards can kind of do this. I've tried mechanical, it doesn't work, and this one does it really well. So these are things that definitely work with this board, and it means that performance wise, you're going to have a decent time with this. Now, testing out SOCD, so rappy snappy, making sure that the AD works, where if you press A and the hold T, it should keep going to the right. But as you can see here, it's not working. So this is something that Luminkey is really going to have to take a look at, because I don't know why it's not working. Now going into the spreadsheet, which I'm going to be honest, I've realized that it is missing some of the boards that I've tested, so I'm going to have to update this a little bit more. But the Luminkey Magger is at $169 right normal price, but right now $149 with the sale. Really comparing it with a lot of the competitors out there, right? So you're going to have to really look at this and really see what this difference is. Now with the Magger60 HE Ultra, it is going to be around the same price, $169. Now with the Wu-Ting, right, the V2, you're looking at about $200, $220 for the V2, and you also have like the Fun 60 Ultra, which is going to be another 60% with an aluminum case. That's at $90 with like the wireless and TMR hybrid modes, which is really interesting for sure. But you can't really modify that board, which is the downside. The Luminkey Magger has certain benefits to it, which I think is a big pro. One of the things is that the fact that the PCB has a huge customizable option, meaning you can put in different cases, and this is probably more customization options available compared to even the Wu-Ting, which is really big. Now, that's a big pro, but there's also going to be some negatives to this board, right? So even though it is super customizable, we're looking at a board that's still kind of priced a little bit high when you consider the software. And the next thing also is that the switches were not great stock. They're very scratchy, which is not great and requires lubing and modification. Now the case is very decent with this board, but it is a bit thin. It does have a nice thin bezel to it, which some people are going to enjoy, but I found like it just felt a little bit thin with the sound as well. And in general, the PCB not being 1.6 and the plate, I think also kind of affects the sound as well. Now, that's why I say the software here, the 6.5 out of 10 is because of the missing profiles and the fact that the software is a little bit not intuitive, and the SOCD, the snappy tap, is not working. So those are the reasons why I have to give it a 6.5. Really, they're going to have to improve the software and make a bunch of updates if they really want to compete with the competition that's currently available. The typing sound, I give it a 7.5 out of 10 because it does sound very decent. But as I said, it has a scratch to it, which even after lubing, you'll still hear a little bit of. And the other issue is the fact that the sound is a little bit thin because of the PCB and the plate size, where I think it's a little bit too thin for it to sound really nice. I think if they made it full 1.6 and they did it really well, it could have sounded very good. But overall, I really have to say that, yeah, it's kind of lacking in the fact that the software is really a miss a little bit. Without certain features, without it being very intuitive, like easy ways to use it and more improvements to it, this board is still going to be lacking quite a bit of things. Once they do make those updates and really improve it and keep putting more work into this with like firmware updates and software updates, this board can really be good.
Comparing it with all the other boards out there and really considering the price range of this board, it's not a bad value. You're going to get a decent value with this board, especially when you consider the fact that, it's around like the $160, $70 USD point, and the fact that you can actually put this in other cases and fit this board with, say, like the Wu-Ting stuff or the Venom 60 stuff. So they did a decent job in considering that a 60% should really match up with the other stuff. That way you can get third-party, support with different types of modifications and customizations. The only thing is, I still feel like compared to a lot of the other boards out there, it's definitely still a bit pricey when you consider the software. They're really going to have to up the software because nowadays, like the bare minimum should be having profiles available and having a very clean and simple UI, but also being able to customize certain features that you'd want to use with your board. Their software is gotten better and it's definitely on an okay level where it gets the bare minimum done. But there's certain facts that they need to improve to really be out there and make a better place for themselves in the market. I think that the sound-wise was pretty decent, but you really do have to modify it and lube the switches, which is not always the nicest thing. Honestly, I think the Magger60 HE actually sounded and felt a lot better as a board and felt even more premium compared to the 60, but that's just my opinion. I'll still have the links in the description for you guys. You can go check it out yourself, see whether or not this is a board that you want to grab. And of course, I'd love to hear from you guys in the Discord channel if you have any questions or if you get this board and what your experience is with it. So please make sure to like and subscribe. Go check out the other videos I got, and I'll have to catch you guys next time.